Hello Virgo, welcome to your reading. My name is Maria. This is a general tarot intuitive story for you. If you have any kind of Virgo in your chart, or if you were drawn to this video for some other reason, then surely you were directed here. So we have a very beautiful story on the table today, and it might be a completely inner process that you are going through or have been going through. Or it might be a process that involves another person. So, read it as it, or I'll be reading it, but understand it as it fits your situation, because, it could be different for all of you. So we start out with the zebra, and what this card is about today is somebody reluctantly saying goodbye to something or somebody else. So I see this as maybe your person kind of turning around, looking back, sad and not like this was not the way they wanted this to end, and going, well, I have to go because this is not gonna work for me. So let's say this you turn around and you did this at an earlier phase or an earlier time, and you said goodbye to something that you actually really wanted to have work, or something that had meant a lot to you for a long time, and you had to leave it behind. So the thing you had to leave behind it could be a person for sure, but it could actually also be a part of yourself, a persona you've been developing for a lot of years that maybe you realized at one point you couldn't sustain anymore, or that wasn't really bringing you to what you wanted, that was not really doing that for you which you hoped it would, and maybe the price has become too high. So the thing that's being said goodbye to is this: a person who is very powerful and very in control. It looks like somebody who's very in control also of their own body, like maybe doing a whole lot of lifting weights, or a lot of sports, very athletic. Maybe this is about a health issue, and building a whole, it kind of came out like building a whole armor out of muscle, and then underneath that being kind of emotionally unapproachable. So the reason why the zebra is walking away, maybe why you're walking away from your person or did, is because you couldn't really actually have a real connection with them, because they were very guarded, and they had a lot of or that persona that you had inside of you that you're realizing you can't take with you to your next phase of life, is that it's very powerful. It really comes out as powerful, but but it doesn't have, you're not able to get into the softness of it, to the real beauty of the heart, or the real softness of the inner person, because there's just too much outer power in a way, there's too much outer control. And it comes out as it has really positive qualities. It's very autonomous, very self-driven, very self-made, very independent. But maybe that might also be why you're walking away from it, because it means that you can never really be something to this person that is very deep or very important, because they rely on themselves. And so if this was a part of you that you decided to leave behind, you might have realized, yeah, I'm actually not gonna ever have deep connection in this way, because I'm hiding myself behind all of my strength. So either way, there is a goodbye. There's a goodbye, and that goodbye is of course followed by sadness, grief, and you or them or both of you howling at the moon. This is a card that's very much about loneliness and pain, being left behind. The wolf The wolf is not supposed to be alone. It's supposed to be with somebody. It's supposed to have its flock. So so it's a card of pain, and with it, it looks to me follows the dark night, sort of a dark night of the soul, at least a period of grief and pain and sorrow. So if you left a part of yourself behind, of course you're in grief. If you left a person, you're grieving, but this could very much be them also having been thrown out of your warmth and out of your love, and then, you know, feeling all of this sorrow, like really getting in touch with their vulnerability once you're not there anymore. And you could be the person who was like, yeah, I couldn't stay. Like, I love you dearly, I love you deeply, but I couldn't stay because you're not willing to show up with your real vulnerability. So I just had to move on. I couldn't stay here waiting for you to never want to open up really, or never needing me, like, or never really wanting to engage deeper, always being more invested in your independence. So either way, there's a grief, but it turns into something incredibly beautiful. That this looks like the dark night of the soul leading to a revelation, to finding some, like, so the heart suddenly lighting up, or the light being found in the darkness. You, if this is an inner process, get a revelation, or if this is your person, they come into realization. Like, this changes them, being thrown into this loneliness and grief, and you having said, I won't compromise. I can't stay here. If you don't need me, if it's only ever gonna be about your you know, your project and how you're gonna, you know, your independence and your control, then I'm gonna have to go. So this awakening happens, like a new insight, and the insight, the very deep understanding that you, or your person, reaches is described like this. It's about a complete change, a complete inner rebirth, about something, about a realization that is so powerful that it changes really the fabric of a whole beingness, of a whole person. And what it's about is to learn to balance the lower and the higher aspect of oneself. So the swan, it always comes out to me like the sort of the lower side of the swan, the territorial, petty, aggressive swan. And this hangman, it comes out as an incredibly, Muse comes out as an incredibly vibrant, trusting, flow state, happy being. So even though it kind of feels like the swan should be something really graceful and beautiful, and this one should be something stagnated, but it's like it's the other way around. And what these two together mean to me is that it's about somebody kind of realizing, oh, I both have these lower aspects of myself and my higher aspects, and I've not really been able to, or willing, or haven't yet before matured into actually realizing both of these, and acknowledging both of these, and learning how to deal with these. Because it might have been a person or a part of you that hadn't really learned those skills of acknowledging. Maybe also could be somebody who doesn't know how to apologize, or who doesn't know how to see, like, really have insight into themselves. But suddenly, because of this dark night of soul, and you know, digging deeper into themselves and the opening that happens, they start to realize, oh, okay, actually, I'm both. You know, human life is that we're both our lower aspects and our higher aspects, and we can't actually ascend, we can't actually mature, we can't, and if we can't do these things, we can also not have deep, true, meaningful love relationships, because they kind of require that we're able to be self-reflective and you know, show up also to look at our little bit dark sides, or our, you know, maybe those parts of ourselves we don't find very heroic, we would like to not have to acknowledge. All of that comes into play when we're intimate, when we're close to somebody, or we want to be. And I think your person or yourself has this realization of like, of seeing that, oh yeah, I'm actually both. I'm both my lower aspects, but I'm also my higher aspects. And understanding this actually makes it possible for me to rise higher. If I refuse to acknowledge my lower aspects, if I refuse to acknowledge where I'm wrong or where I'm imperfect, then I can never really fly. I can never get to that place where it becomes really beautiful, really, really intimate, really spectacular, because it's not how it works. You have to go through that part to reach that part. So that kind of maturing into that realization, and that makes it possible for their heart to awaken, to enter the conversation, so to speak, because in this state, that heart was not as accessible, not at all, because all of this was kind of creating an armor, or sort of making it impossible to reach any kind of real vulnerability. And even if you got deeper, it would still be almost like you know, like one of those military tracks where you have to like crawl into a tunnel and then jump over some water and then crawl up over a wall. Like it's a whole thing to try to get into the vulnerability. But now, because of the realization of them, maybe just having practiced also self-love or met themselves in this very vulnerable dark night of the soul, they're realizing, oh, okay, I can actually see these lower aspects of myself, and then still be love, still show up for love, still be worthy of love. Maybe that was the realization they needed to reach, that having sides of ourselves that are imperfect doesn't mean that we're not worthy of love. It only becomes a problem when we refuse to acknowledge it. And that would also make it impossible for us to like really, really attain higher states. So their heart is entering the conversation with a lot of sort of wisdom suddenly, more fully. And that means that they become, maybe for the first time ever, willing to have conversations about the hard parts. Like having conversations about difficult parts of a relationship, having difficult conversations. They might have not had the skills or being willing, knowing how, or maybe they didn't know it was important. They might have been sort of running away from their own pain, so they couldn't show up for yours, or they couldn't show up for a difficult conversation because that was just too triggering. But going through this sort of, I guess, a maturing process means that they're suddenly able to have a difficult conversation, or not suddenly. It's not a sudden process, doesn't look like that to me, but they're maturing into this ability to see, to go into themselves and see what's difficult, and then also show up. to have that kind of a conversation or meeting without running away or getting scared, or just not being able to deal at all. And so this shows up, like this ability to suddenly being able to both master light and darkness, to balance two things, to put more of themselves into play, and to tackle both the lower sides of life and the higher sides of life, and of themselves and of you, and everything. So suddenly it becomes possible to dance. It becomes possible to move with grace, to be more light, to be more in the moment. Excuse me. And actually, and not being scared of it. Of course, it's difficult to step into an energy like this. It could be, let's say, if this is a relationship and you took some time apart, then of course, if you're gonna find your way back to each other, you're gonna have to open a lot of cans of worms, and have some conversations that, of course, nobody would want to have. This is really difficult, but you'll both be guided, because you've been ascending, or certainly one of you has, and so it's gonna be, suddenly there's gonna be a flow, and it's gonna be, well, it's like it's raining down with blessings in a way. It's like once you have the courage to step into this difficult room and try to figure out what's in here, what's that about, what's yours, what's mine, what needs to be talked about and looked at. It's so supported. It has so much beauty in it, and so much possibility of being very alive. That's also actually how it comes out. It's just that your person was not very alive, was kind of like stuck in his or theirs own way, but now it just becomes something else. A conversation becomes possible. So what's happening is that you now both show up in the reading like this, as like a bat and an eagle, and these two cards were the ones who made me realize what this reading is about. Fundamentally, it's about somebody, or maybe both of you, learning how to tackle darkness. Learning how to tackle darkness, their own, others' darkness as such. And here we see two flying creatures, a night creature and a day creature. And it's like both of them being able to fly, to move, to contribute. And this could be you and your person, or both of you, being able to be in it without having to run away, without having to control it, without saying no every time it gets a little bit difficult. And then suddenly wings, suddenly movement, suddenly the big perspective, and a lot of options opening up, and how this plays out, what happens when both of you have these wings, and you have both night and day, both light and darkness as a part of the conversation. Love, the lovers. And ending the reading, this is the last card of the reading. It's just, and if this was an inner process, if this is something you've been going through, you've been making it possible for you to really show up for love to find you, for love to blossom. you've been putting yourself into position for this to just arrive in your life. And if this is between you and a person, then this is now is the blooming. It really came out as like, it was almost like like just a flower bursting into bloom. And it was reminding me of this card, right? You see the similarities? So we start out with this person kind of behind a whole lot of like, you had to jump through a million hoops to try to get to them, and still you couldn't maybe really ever reach that vulnerability, and maybe this was you. And then turning into love, to just pure love, and to love between you, or the possibility of love arriving. And that was really what this was about. It was really about, you know, that we started out with the zebra saying goodbye because it wasn't enough. Like, what was on the table was not enough. It wasn't vulnerable, it wasn't real. And then that choice turning into real love, like turning into something real. And the zebra also, because, you know, it's black and white. It's like, it has both of it. It has both light and darkness. So you've been learning, or your person has been learning how to be in life with that, which I think is like such a stunning, beautiful journey. And then ending with the energy of love. So that's the journey. That's really, really beautiful. And in a way, it's kind of also learning how to surrender into trust, and not being in control all the time, but learning that surrendering into trust, and acknowledging imperfections and all of these things is actually really the true way to love. Yeah. So this was your reading, Virgo. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got something out of it. And if you did, please like, subscribe, comment, and come back again soon. Bye.